Ha ha! What's up, Busters? The bug catcher is here today, smoking trees, catching butterfrees. He just got off of work. He walked through the door, pressed the record button, and here we are. The 1,000 subscriber video. I didn't even think I'd ever get 1,000 people to hear my voice and then click the subscribe button. So every single one of you, thank you so much. And with that being said, here we are. I normally don't want to maybe fix the bug type or fix the ice type or whatever, but you saw the title, you looked at what we got going on. We're going to fix the bug type, make it better. You see the mono bug run on the screen the bug catcher got going on. Hit the subscribe and let's get right into the big doozy. So let's talk about the bug type and what it is now, right? So super effective against grass, psychic, and dark. Makes sense to me. A lot of us know why, bugs eat grass or plants or whatever. Psychic, and I guess the evil people are scared of bugs, right? It resists fighting grass and ground. I don't really get why it resists fighting. I get why it resists ground, right? Because, ants be moving ground, right? I'll get into all this. Let me just keep going. Now what hits the bug type hard, right? Rock, flying, and fire. That actually doesn't even seem like you think it'd be a lot more than that. I almost feel like what the list and my memory and everything I've done for this video is wrong, because that just don't seem right. But the types that resist bug: flying, steel, fire, poison, fairy, fighting, ghost, right? It's the weakest type. It somewhat teaches the player evolution, Butterfree, Beedrill. But it was also bugs in general was also the whole inspiration for Pokemon, was literally bug catching, right? So with explaining, with me getting all that BS out the way, right? What the bug type is, a lot of us know what it is. What would I do to change it? So a lot of people obviously want it to be strong, super effective against fairy, and obviously resist fairy. And it makes sense, because fairies can be little bitches sometimes, right? Like, picture Tinkerbell floating her little way through a forest, and it runs into a fucking Scolipede, or a Scyther, or a Beedrill. It's gonna get scared, right? It's not gonna want to box. Like a little baby fairy ain't gonna want to box a big old bug, you know what I'm saying? And if the psychic and evil type don't like bugs, the fairy kind of is like the third, it kind of makes sense for fairy to be weak and resisted to and by the bug type bust bags, if you know what I'm saying. And the other big doozy, everyone says, just to buff most bug type Pokemon, just buff their stats or even buff the moves a little bit. And I can see, I don't even want to argue that to some extent, because it was the inspiration for Pokemon was bugs, right? Like I said earlier. So, I'm not saying it should be on the dragon types level or anything like that, or like the best type, but it should be like the premier type. Like, it should be the type in Pokemon, right? I just don't understand why it's not. Now, if you buff all the stats, can it still be the early route Pokemon to teach, the player evolution? And, you don't have to necessarily, and they have buffed Butterfree stats before, right? And they've given it Gigantamaxes and, Beedrill, Omega. I'm just talking about the Gen 1 bugs for the moment, right, Busters? So because that's literally what Beedrill and Butterfree were there for, to teach the new guys, the new players, to teach people evolution. But why can't the normal type have been that, right? Like Rattata evolves at level 20. Why can't it evolve at level 13? Why not? Why can't you have one of those at level 12, Eradicate, and debuff Eradicate? Don't make it as powerful, right? Because it's just the normal type. It's the basic type. That should be the introductory type, which it is on route 1 or 2 or whatever in Kanto. That's all you see is Pidgeys and Rattatas, except in if I'm not mistaken, except in Let's Go, where there's I believe an Oddish there. Maybe that's in Yellow. I don't. Yellow's bullshit to me. It's not bullshit, but I'm not gonna lie to you, Busters. I never really got around to play Yellow, just because I don't need. I want to evolve Pikachu. Now I played Let's Go because it's 3D, but I'm not about to have Pikachu in my party being all shitty. But back to the point, the normal type could be that type to be the introductory, and like I said, it kind of is. You don't even get to the bug type till after the fact. You meet a couple normal type Pokemon, so why can't Pidgey evolve at level 10 and 15? Or 10 and 20? That could have happened as well. I'm not sure why it didn't, because, the bug type should be the premier type, Busters. Now that I got those 2 points out the way, though, a point that I think should have happened when something that I think that Pokemon should have done when they introduced the fairy type was brought back Poison's super effectiveness to the bug type and vice versa. Because with, the introduction of fairies, one of their weaknesses was poison. Now, Steel was already a prominent type, if I'm not mistaken, in the VGC format. But Poison wasn't. But now it's about to be with the introduction of Fairy. But if you reintroduce Poison and Bug's original, interaction with each other, and for those who don't know, in original Gen 1, Bug was super effective against Poison, and Poison was super effective against Bug. I'm not sure why. Maybe because some bugs can eat poison or got poison in them. Like a scorpion or a spider. Or like a bee even. Raid kills cockroaches and stuff like that, right? So, in a way, it makes sense why they would both be super effective against each other. They should have brought that back with the introduction of the fairy type, and that just would have spiced things up even more. So not only when fairy was introduced, Bug totally dominated it. Poison and Bug's interactiveness would have been reintroduced. And, I just think it would have spiced things up better in the VGC at that time. Something else I see that when people talk about fixing the bug type is no one talks about this, right? I don't think it makes sense that the flying type is super effective against bug. Now hear me out, right? So I know maybe a move like pluck or maybe wing attack, because in real life birds eat small bugs. But I've seen videos of big ass praying mantises beating the dog shit out of, little blue birds and little robins and shit. So that can go both ways, right? That can go both ways in nature. So it's all about the size of what's going on. It's all about the size of the bird and the insect. So I don't think if there was a bird type, like I know when Pokemon, it's almost like bird is a subtype of flying in a way, right? And I know bird was gonna be in a type originally in one of the games, but they ended up scrapping it, right? Busters. Maybe a bird 9 times out of 10 is better in nature against a regular old insect, right? But I picture it more of a bird going against a snake or a mouse or even a fish, not a bug or an insect per se, but I'm sure it does happen. But even if you want, I don't think there's enough evidence for that, for the whole type to be strong against, against the bug type. So I would just make them neutral to each other. Like not bug is not very effective towards flying, and not that it's, super effective back. I would just make them neutral. Because, let's think about weather, right? Like a move like gust is just a strong wind. In southern United States where the weather is kind of crazy, like, Louisiana, where the bug catcher hails from, right? Yeah, I've seen dragonflies flying around in windy weather. I've seen them flying in the rain. I'm sure there's bugs in the rainforest. Waters, if you're talking about weather, it doesn't hurt bug types when it rains. Water's not super effective against the bug type. Why? You can drown bugs with enough water. So why not, why is gust super effective? You would think a dragonfly like Yan Mega would just be able to maintain its flying motion because it's strong enough in just a gust of wind, It never made sense to me. And I guess it's the bird angle. But, fuck that, right? Like, fuck that bullshit. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. So, I was talking about normal types earlier. Think about what the normal type is, right? The normal type is like a basic rodent, like a Rattata. What else is normal? A basic lion, like Pyroar. What's another normal type? A basic bird, like most of the regional birds. Basic. Look at young goose. Normal type, right? The point I'm going with this, in real life, what is normally on those types of animals? Fleas, ticks, other small mosquitoes, right? Bees would sting a dog, like Herdier, or fleas would be on Herdier, or, a dog type Pokemon. So I think the bug type should be super effective against the normal types, busters. I don't think it should resist normal, but it should definitely be super effective towards the normal type. Why not? Why wouldn't it be? Think about what a tick like Joltik in Pokemon. Think about what a tick would do with a dog in real life, like Herdier. It would fuck it up. Think about the new dog in Scarlet and Violet, the fairy one that's made out of bread. I forget its name. But even, it's like the weenie dog, right? The name's escaping me. But picture a little tick on him. Makes sense, the bug, I could see where Game Freak missed a big opportunity with that one. A big chance to make the bug type a little bit more relevant. Especially against a Pokemon like Tauros in Gen 1 or Snorlax. Throwing out a Beedrill using Twin Needle. And, obviously they need better moves. Even to this day. Like, I'm not an expert on moves, right? I'm not going to act like I am, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But I've seen, the Wolfies of the world. The T-Tars, the M&J TVs of the world. Talk shit about the bug type. And, especially Wolfie, I do recall a video of him talking about the bug type and the moves being trash, right? So, the moves could be better. If the bug type resists ground, why not be super effective? Look at and hear me out, right? What can the ground type do? Not the ground type, right? What can the earth do when an ant decides to move it around and make an ant pile? Nothing. It has to sit there and take it. So I think it should be super effective. If it resists ground, be strong against it too. And that's just one example. And in Pokemon, you don't need a lot of examples. Ninkata's the bug Ninkata is based off of literally burrows in the ground. A lot of bugs do. A lot of larvae of insects burrow into the ground. So it can almost control the ground in Pokemon. A lot of dragon types can learn fire type moves, flamethrower. Even Gyarados, I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I think even Gyarados can learn like flamethrower and thunderbolt, right? So they even like most dragons and dragon element type Pokemon can control other elements. Bug could have been what controls, a lot of bugs could just know or ground type moves, could be super effective against the ground type. Why not? This should be the premier type. And why does Ghost resist? I get some of the other resistance, right? Fighting and Bug resist each other. I can see, I guess I could see that, actually. Why would fighting, because I picture fighting to be like a human karate guy, which is kind of what the fighting type is, right? Look at Sock and Throw, Machamp, Machoke, right? Busters. So if I'm a karate guy, but I get fucked up by a bee or a scorpion or a spider, I'm going to be super affected by it. So I'm not sure why, but whatever. They're both resistant to each other. Let's leave it that way, right? Fire, steel, I get. Fairy and flying, we done fixed that. So we're fixing the ghost too, right? So, why is it just don't make sense, because a ghost is a random thing that's died and it's still here. So, hypothetically speaking, what would water do to a ghost? It can't drown because it's already dead, right? He already died. So, I don't know. It don't make no sense to me. And, one quick point before I get out of here, Busters. Back to raising the base stat totals of certain Pokemon. And, if you want to leave the bug type as I think I made this point, but maybe I didn't. I'm going to make it again. Bust bags. If you still want to leave, because it makes sense why Beedrill, Butterfree are the evolutionary, Pokemon, right? But why did Venonat and Venomoth have to suck? Like, why couldn't they be strong? And why couldn't they learn? Why couldn't there have been, Leech, and why couldn't Leech Life? I think they learned that, in Gen 1 or Gen 3 remakes of Fire Red, Leaf Green. I think Venonat learns Leech Life. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I know Dugong learned Signal Beam. Why didn't, it's like they didn't give a fuck. And I think that's the big problem I have, right? Is they didn't give a fuck. Pokemon, it was the inspiration, and then they dropped the ball and just decided not to give two fucks till Gen 4. They half gave a fuck in Gen 2. When they gave them Scizor and Heracross, better Pokemon with some better decent moves, but it was just, the bug type sucked for a long time. You see me holding the Kobe Bryant controller. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. But, I just don't understand the disrespect the bug type got for so long when it was the inspiration for it all. And with that being said, Busters, the bug catcher is out. I appreciate the 1,100 subs. We're only going to keep growing. Every one of you is part of the bug catcher gang. BCG, baby. Maybe we'll have shirts one day. Maybe not. I never even thought that was a possibility of even, y'all don't know the love I have for everyone hitting the subscribe button. Everyone hitting the likes, commenting. It ain't too many comments, but I appreciate the ones I get. And with that being said, the bug catcher is nothing without y'all, but he's something with y'all. And he's about to get the fuck out of here. Peace, hair grease, and chicken grease on top of that, bus bags. I botched the outro. Fuck.